I have this great privilege to be here today to talk to all of you and also to represent the Aga Khan University. It's certainly an honour to have this role with them. And a couple of things I promised to do today, and one thing I promised not to do is talk about cricket. So I'm here to talk about digital transformation and getting strategic. And in that I'll walk back through probably a little bit of information which has been replayed already today. And I'd also like to apologise if the accent is a little strong, or if I talk too quickly, I'll try to slow down. So please bear with me. So, digital transformation, what is it? It's rethinking how the organisation uses technology, people and processes. For all of us as CIOs, we've always lived with this mantra of people, process, technology, and how they're driven by strategy to enable greater performance and ultimately improve customer service. It's basically, I suppose if I look at it, driven by 6 key technology trends. There are other trends, so this is not certainly complete. If I look at cloud, the cloud's been around for a while, but it's still driving us. It's how we use it, how we're able to leverage that. Certainly in an organisation like Aga Khan, with the jurisdictions we operate in, it presents a few challenges to us, as well as it does to the operators. Social media. Social media drives so many things these days. It drives the way your customers want to interact with you. And social media is also a powerful tool in emergency situations, in disaster management, in getting real-time intelligence about situations. So it's a powerful tool and a positive for the organisation. But equally, it has that flip side, which is it can also be critical of the organisation and the way it behaves. Mobility. We all live in a mobile world. I travel a fair amount in my role, and without the tools and without devices like these and tablets, I probably couldn't do my job. So this provides me to be in contact, and I look at it more as a contact type device. So we have various people in roles. You know, we have doctors who are out in the field. There are bankers who are out lending money. They're out mobile. There's all sorts of people out in the resources sector, out in remote areas at mines, in exploration work. And we have other people who are using mobile devices while they're cruising at 35,000 feet. So they're using their own personal devices on the internet. So mobility is driving the way we need to go to a market and we deal with our customers. The Internet of Things, as was described earlier, is everything. We have Apple Watches, we have bands which are monitoring our blood pressure and temperature, we have other wearable devices, we have our phones which have our music on, or we're listening to podcasts, but we're gathering lots of information from the Internet of Things. And it certainly has not something which has just materialised. It's been on a gradual path for a period of time. What has happened though is the explosion and the consumerisation into a fast-moving consumer good, which is the mobility or the Internet of Things, is driving that. Big data. I'll leave the subject to the last. Big data is, we've been in the information game. We're CIOs. For many of us, for years, we've been dealing in information management, and various types of data, transactional data, operational data, management data. But the sheer volume of information coming from the digitisation of devices. Many years ago, we dealt with analog type devices, SCADA type devices, but everything's gone digital in the way it interfaces. And as that volume of information, which people want to get their hands on and process to understand better what's happening. And data, if I look at sectors, different types of sectors, if I look at the amount of data that's being gathered in the healthcare sector, it's growing rapidly through changes in technology and introduction of new technologies. If I look at genomics, which does DNA mapping, that generates vast volumes of information about you as one individual. If you expand that to a population, it's almost insurmountable to think about the size of that and how you're going to process it. Equally, in the banking sector, a lot of transactional data. In the retail sector, lots of transactional data. It helps to understand how I pitch my products to market and how I use that proactively in marketing as someone may walk through a shopping centre. So retailers use that, they understand your shopping patterns, banks understand your spending patterns, how they then cross-market and push products to you. So all that's great. And data for many years used to be in a manual form on paper, and it was reasonably secured. Certainly in the healthcare sector, for probably 300-400 years, the information has been paper-based. We're now going through the massive digitisation of healthcare. It started in various other locations in other countries, but it's driving into Pakistan. And we're seeing it driving across our entire market, so through into East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Afghanistan. With that comes, how do I secure it? How do I know who can access the data? Are they entitled to access it? Has it got patient consent, or has it got the consent of the individuals that you deal with as customers? So this is not something new about security. It's just become, we're now dealing in a digital world, and we're having to understand. And equally, policy, and I'd suggest government policy and a whole range of other policies, have lagged behind. Lagged behind what the Internet of Things does, what big data is doing, and cybersecurity. So cybersecurity, I've looked at in the past and said, it's just another facet of risk management. If we were really mature in our risk management, we would actually be across this already. But it's come at us at a pace, and we haven't had our safeguards up. So these are technologies driving us, or trends. When I look at transitioning to the future, this is really where we've come from. The birth of human beings back here, 13,000 BC, irrigation techniques, up through the invention of the steam locomotives, as we heard earlier, through into the latter half of the 20th century, invention of computers, start of information distribution, information society. That is really what we call Society 4.0. Society 5.0 is the super smart society. That's where we are driving to from a transition perspective. These, for your information, these diagrams, this is part of the Japanese government, Society 5.0, and Hitachi Global would understand these diagrams. Society 4.0 is about cyberspace, cloud, people accessing and retrieving and analysing that information. Society 5.0, which is where we are looking to drive in Aga Khan, because that's where we have to go, is about big data. Analysis from sensors, and that comes from all types of locations, driving, proposing automatic links, producing robots and factories, through to the AI. Now, AI is an interesting space. There's two components to it. There's what I call the artificial neural intelligence, which is effectively where you set an algorithm to process, and there's artificial general intelligence, where it thinks like a human and learns. Unfortunately, in AI, you can also create biases in the algorithms. And there's cases recently where people have been convicted on biases in algorithms. So this is really where society is heading. 5.0. That's the world we're starting to talk about. So there are other trends here. As I said, customer interfaces are digitised through mobile devices, the Internet of Things. Data is stored on a huge scale, and it's analysed and made usable by big data. So, you know, if we start to talk about the size of data sets, we always used to think that terabytes was a large amount of data, and then it was petabytes, and now it just continues to grow. What we thought we might generate a petabyte of data in maybe 4 or 5 years, we might generate in 1 year now. So it's our ability to analyse that, but also not get lost in it. And it's through analytics, predictive analytics, is the power to use that data. Back. Got ahead of myself. Mobile data is enabled by mobile devices. The challenge for us as CIOs is where is all this data? Where is all that data? Because actually as a CIO, it's our responsibility to know where it is, because we have to secure it. And we have to know, is that data of use in our processing for big data and predictive analytics. We also have to be aware, as I said, from an artificial intelligence and 3D printing and networking systems that are used for production processes. So, well, okay. 3D printing and networking systems are used for production processes, and how open source communities and crowdsourcing are used for projects. At the bottom here, we talk about digital business models are set up. They're set up as part of this digitisation to disrupt the sector. Banks are now dealing with pure technology banks, no branches, right? And some of the big banks are now moving straight back into that. Will they stay in that space? We've always been through the bricks and mortar versus online banking or online shopping. There's a marketplace for both, and we see that in our space. So what are some of the trends that we have in telemedicine, or in healthcare? And these apply to everyone in a lot of sectors. Telemedicine, more than 80% of doctors surveyed said telemedicine is a better way to manage chronic disease than the traditional office visit. So we're changing the way. We can have a doctor anywhere in the world talking to a patient and diagnosing and providing and prescriptions for medication, or looking at their condition. We do it now. We have ICU specialists sitting in Karachi who can look at stuff in Kenya. We have ICU people who sit in Perth and can work for the UK or the US. Mobility and cloud is an issue for us. So how we use all these devices. Wearables and IoT is another challenge for us. AI and big data and empowered consumers. So we face the same challenges that everybody else does. So, getting strategic. We are witnessing an ever-increasing change in what is available to support organisations. The trends are becoming much larger, and new technology methods and thinking we are witnessing are changing countries and at global level. The future is progressing towards a convergence between cyber and physical. And machine learning and artificial intelligence will lead to automation and much greater information sets. Mining sector does remote or driverless trains, driverless trucks in the iron ore and coal industry in Australia. So they're controlled from a central location. How do we ensure our organisation keeps up and serves the new world? Well, it's about how we think about strategy. We need to understand where we are today. And we need to then set a vision for where we want to go. And that's what we've been doing at Outcome. Where do we want to be? And it's not something that one person comes up with, it's across the organisation. We need to leverage the knowledge that we have in the organisation. And we need to understand the enablers. What does the industry bring to us to help us move forward? From these points, we then start to ask ourselves questions around how do we transform. So, all improvement initiatives spending must be aligned, because you can't do this because we have finite budgets. We need to develop and maintain a joined up strategy. It's not just an IT strategy. This is a business driven strategy. We are the change managers. That's our role as CIOs. We drive change. The organisation must drive transformation, not the vendors. Vendors bring us enabling tools. It is up to us to set the vision and the direction. You need to have courage, you need to take controlled risks, and you need to measure and reward. And you need to publicly communicate what is being done and regularly measure it. The other component to this is to understand from a maturity perspective where you are on the digital transformation journey. As CIOs, we're always across maturity models in service delivery through ITIL, enterprise architecture projects through PMI and their models. We understand it from data, how we are from a data and a systems perspective. So it's about digital transformation. Where is the organisation? Is it in the no maturity? Is it defined? It has strategies developed? And is it moving up to the integrated and transformed? And transformed means continuous improvement, the CMMI model. What are our challenges? We have to help change the corporate culture. We are change managers. So the culture has to change in organisations. We must always keep the strategy in mind. And to ensure effective collaboration between departments and teams, we need to perform that role as change managers. We need to allocate resources and budget, not just us, but the organisation. And we need to understand the influence of newly networked customers. For instance, and I know I'm running out of time here, when I look at how we transform in AKU and in other roles I've had in other sectors, I don't just look in sector. I look far beyond what are other people doing. And how can I take that and apply it to the place I am right now? So we take the concept of security operations centre, managed services. We apply that into the clinical space, and we can have a clinical operations centre where we can have a group of specialists in one room monitoring 3 or 4 hospitals. Same concepts, technology is there, it's the way you adapt it, innovate and do the transformation. How do you create an ideas factory? So, in order to transform, you need ideas. Now, you need a transformation network, and it's made up of, as I love to always use the word, governance. How am I going to govern what we're going to do? Who should participate? It's not our domain. Everyone should participate in digital transformation. You bring your people from the front line, you bring others, you bring your key specialists. Let them think, let them brainstorm. You must bring the industry with you. These help us and give us context. We need enablers. Once again, our good friends in the vendor world. And we need to be outcome focused. So, one way which we do that, which I've used in some places, and this is a little experiment, and you can take this away, is I have what I call the A4 flight challenge. So I will get people together, and I'll start a clock at 5 minutes, and I'll say, here's your A4 piece of paper. You're going to write your name, what you explain digital transformation, your idea. You're then going to make an aircraft, and when the clock is up, we're all going to throw our aircraft and see them fly. And then when you pick them up, you open them up, and you read out and record. And it's a way of allowing people to generate ideas. It's innovation. It uses a whole range of techniques, but it has actually worked quite well in other organisations. We'll start doing this in Aga Khan, bringing clinicians, bringing nurses, bringing people from the back office to the front office so they can participate. Because digital transformation is just not the front line. It's the entire supply chain. I'm out of time. Thank you. I hope you found it interesting. Happy to talk to anybody after the session.